committed to the fact that Qatar should stop supporting Hamas monetarily and take away that capability.
I think that there is a long history of Qatar welcoming the Muslim Brotherhood and for all practical purposes allowing them a safe haven.
Actually weapons that have shown up in Afghanistan that were U.S. weapons used against us that came through Qatar. So I think we have to be very careful, and when we select a commander-in-chief, do we want a commander-in-chief who is so sloppy about who they give arms to?
Qatar and Turkey to talk about our strategy against ISIS, but in particular to focus on cutting off ISIS financing.
That the government there has not been vigilant in stemming the flow of terrorist financing, and that Qatari individuals and organizations funnel money to some of the most extreme terrorist groups in the region.
Turkey and Qatar by pouring money and weapons and intelligence and other support to these groups that are directly working with groups like Al-Qaeda and ISIS, groups that we are supposed to be trying to fight and to defeat.
We've learned that Qatar is a major source of funds, both at the governmental level, but also allowing its citizens to donate to Hezbollah, Hamas, and ISIS. ISIS is now much more internal funded. At one point, it relied more on donations.
To arms shipments to Libyan rebels from Qatar last year, within weeks of endorsing Qatar's plan to send weapons, the White House began receiving reports that they were going to Islamic groups, and what those militant jihadists would ultimately do as a result of receiving those arms, of being empowered by Qatar.
Strategy. On the one hand, they've always wanted to punch above their weight, and they use Al Jazeera to create a kind of platform for themselves within the region. They have felt that they could be a kind of bridge between warring factions. But you also had the last emir looked at the Muslim Brotherhood almost in heroic terms, not just to be a bridge between Islamists and non-Islamists, but Qatar was largely supportive, and he, in the person of the emir, was largely supportive of the Muslim Brotherhood. I used to joke that they liked the Muslim Brotherhood everywhere except in Qatar.
The Qataris certainly weighed in very heavily to get those hardline Islamist groups, not Islamic State, not Nusra, but the other Islamist groups, to accept a Geneva peace process. They wouldn't listen to the Americans, but they did listen to the Qataris.
They play a good game with us because everybody again looks at it, our friends, say, well, you guys let them get away with it. You know what they're doing, or you let them get away with it. And the reason is supposedly because we have that big base up there at Al Udeid, where it is our biggest base in the Middle East, is on Qatari property. So it's leverage for the Qataris to in effect, get away with the kind of activity they do with respect to supporting the more radical elements of the jihadi movement.
The bulk of the financing that goes to Hamas comes from Qatar. They basically use their money to extract influence around the region.
Qatar has now taken its place in the lead of countries that are supporting Al-Qaeda and Al-Qaeda related. So Qatar operates as a monarchy. Its officials, its activities follow the orders of the government. And to the extent that there is a policy of supporting extremists in the region, that's a policy that comes from the top.